In the dry, golden sands of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, the world changed forever in November 1922. British archaeologist Howard Carter, after years of dogged persistence, peered through a small hole in a doorway, sealed for over 3,000 years, and caught his first glimpse of the treasures within. Flickering candlelight revealed wonderful things: glimmering gold, ornate thrones, intricate jewelry, and the promise of a story untold since the days of pharaohs. The tomb of Tutankhamun, the so-called Boy King, had been found, nearly untouched by looters or time. This discovery, dazzling in its scope and beauty, instantly captured the imagination of the world. The treasures were beyond imagining, but soon another, darker narrative began to take shape. Within months of the tomb's opening, sudden deaths, mysterious illnesses, and whispered warnings wove a chilling legend. The curse of the Pharaoh. Was there truly a supernatural wrath set loose on those who dared disturb the ancient dead? Or was it merely coincidence, fueled by fear and fascination? This is the story of the Pharaoh's curse, a tale where history and myth blur, and where science and superstition clash beneath the shadow of the pyramids. The Valley of the Kings had already been heavily picked over by the early 20th century. Most archaeologists believed nothing new remained, but Howard Carter was convinced otherwise. He spent years excavating, facing discouragement, lack of funds, and skepticism. His patron, Lord Carnarvon, was about to pull the plug on their project when Carter made a final appeal for one more season. His relentless belief paid off. On November 4, 1922, Carter's team uncovered a set of steps descending into the earth. Days later, they reached a sealed doorway, still bearing the stamp of the necropolis's ancient guardians. Behind it lay the tomb of Tutankhamun, a pharaoh who had died mysteriously at the age of about 19. The burial chamber was packed with over 5,000 artifacts: solid gold coffins, death masks, ceremonial chariots, weapons, and treasures meant to serve the king in the afterlife. The magnitude of the find stunned the world and made headlines everywhere, but the sense of triumph was quickly tinged with tragedy. Only a few months after the tomb was opened, Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier, met a sudden and tragic end. He died in Cairo, felled by a seemingly trivial mosquito bite that grew infected and led to blood poisoning and pneumonia. It was said that, at the very moment of his death, all the lights in Cairo went out. In England, his dog reportedly howled and died at the same time. Newspapers around the globe seized on these eerie coincidences, igniting a frenzy of speculation. Had the curse struck its first victim? The idea of the pharaoh's curse was not new, but it now exploded into the public consciousness. Sensational headlines screamed of vengeance from beyond the grave. Death comes on wings to he who enters the tomb of a pharaoh, some claimed was inscribed at the tomb's entrance. Others asserted that Carter himself had seen a warning and ignored it. The reality? No official curse was ever found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Ancient Egyptians did sometimes inscribe warnings on tomb doors, but not in this case. The curse, it seems, was born not in ancient stone, but in the imaginations of journalists and the public, fueled in part by the famous author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who suggested elemental spirits had exacted revenge. Yet as the months and years passed, the death toll seemed to rise. More and more individuals with even the slightest connection to the tomb suffered sudden or mysterious deaths. The American millionaire George J. Gould visited the tomb in 1923. He developed a fever soon after and died of pneumonia. Prince Ali Kamal Fahmy Bey, an Egyptian prince who visited the site, was shot by his wife in London only weeks later. Colonel Aubrey Herbert, Carnarvon's half-brother, went blind after his brother's death and soon died of complications from infected dental surgery. Arthur Mace, a key member of Carter's team, succumbed to arsenic poisoning. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the radiologist who x-rayed the mummy, died under unexplained circumstances not long after his work. In total, over 20 deaths were linked to the tomb in the years following its discovery, many from infection, disease, or sudden unexplained causes. The list grew longer with each passing year, and the legend of the curse grew ever more powerful. But amid the mounting hysteria, there were voices of skepticism. The most prominent was Howard Carter himself. Carter, the man who had spent the most time in the tomb, lived another 17 years, dying of natural causes in 1939. Many of the workers, officials, and journalists who entered the tomb survived long, healthy lives. In fact, a rigorous scientific study published in the British Medical Journal in 2002 found no statistical difference in the lifespans of those involved in the tomb's excavation and those who were not. Many of the deaths attributed to the curse had more mundane explanations: age, pre-existing illness, or the generally poor state of medical care in the early 20th century. Was the curse simply a case of confirmation bias, the human tendency to notice and remember dramatic coincidences while ignoring the ordinary? Or was there something more at work? As the myth grew, scientists began to offer alternative, natural explanations for the rash of deaths and illnesses. One of the most compelling theories centered on toxic mold and bacteria. Tombs sealed for millennia can become breeding grounds for dangerous fungi such as Aspergillus flavus, which produces deadly spores. Inhaling these spores can lead to severe respiratory infections and allergic reactions, particularly among the elderly or those with compromised immune systems. Other bacteria, such as Pseudomonas and Staphylococcus, may also thrive in such conditions. Lord Carnarvon, already in fragile health, may have succumbed to just such an infection. Another possibility lies in the very materials used to preserve and decorate the tomb. Some ancient Egyptians are believed to have used arsenic and other toxic chemicals in paints and preservatives, possibly as deliberate traps to deter tomb robbers, or simply as a byproduct of their techniques. Inhaling fumes or touching contaminated surfaces in the confined, dusty chambers could have posed real risk. Then there is the psychological factor. The power of belief, the so-called nocebo effect, can trigger real, often severe physical symptoms when a person expects harm. Many who entered the tomb had heard whispers of the curse. Some may have been predisposed to anxiety or stress. The resulting fear could weaken the immune system or even precipitate fatal heart attacks. Yet the myth of the curse would not have taken such a firm hold without deep roots in the beliefs of the ancient Egyptians themselves. While Tutankhamun's tomb lacked a direct curse inscription, many other tombs in Egypt were inscribed with dire warnings to would-be intruders. Cursed be those who disturb the rest of a pharaoh. They that shall break the seal of this tomb shall meet death by a disease that no doctor can diagnose. These were not idle threats. Egyptians believed that the afterlife was eternal, but only if the body was left undisturbed. Violation of the tomb meant the possibility of a second death, complete oblivion. Curses, then, were as much psychological deterrents as supernatural warnings, reinforcing the sanctity of the dead and the dangers of sacrilege. As the decades passed, the curse of the pharaoh entered the realm of popular culture. The 1932 film The Mummy, starring Boris Karloff, cemented the image of reanimated mummies stalking the living. Countless books, television shows, and modern movies, like the blockbuster The Mummy franchise of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, have built on this foundation, blending fact, fiction, and fear. Even today, some tourists report nightmares, dizziness, or inexplicable illness after visiting ancient tombs. Whether these experiences are the result of mold, suggestion, or something stranger, the legend persists. At the heart of the story lies a deeper mystery, the fate of Tutankhamun himself. The young king's death, remains shrouded in uncertainty. His skull bears signs of trauma. His chest cavity was found crushed and his body burned, possibly due to spontaneous chemical reactions within the sealed sarcophagus. Modern CT scans and DNA tests reveal a litany of maladies: malaria, genetic disorders from royal inbreeding, and a broken leg that became infected. Some researchers even suggest he may have been murdered, the victim of palace intrigue and a political coup. If so, could the curse be seen as a cosmic retribution, a spiritual justice exacted for an unjust death? Or is that, too, just another layer of myth? So is the curse of the pharaoh real? The evidence is, as always, a mix of intrigue and ambiguity. It is clear that many people did die after exposure to Tutankhamun's tomb. Some suddenly, some mysteriously. Science explains much, but not everything. The power of belief, the presence of ancient pathogens, and the enduring fascination with the supernatural all play their part. In the end, the story of the pharaoh's curse is a mirror held up to our own fears and hopes. It reminds us that the past is not just a collection of bones and artifacts, but a living presence full of secrets and shadows. That ancient people believed in things we can barely imagine. That sometimes death is not the end of the story, but only the beginning of a legend that refuses to die.
As we stand before the golden mask of Tutankhamun, gazing into the calm, inscrutable eyes of a boy king, dead for millennia, we are reminded of the fragility of life, the persistence of mystery, and the enduring allure of the unknown. Whether the curse is real or not, its power endures, not in the dust of tombs, but in the minds and imagination of all who dare to seek the secrets of the ancient world.